took my L, I kept it pushing, I can't break for that. They tried to count me out, I told them it's too late for that.
D. Monroe, you really are an influencer.
Yes. So
I got a text when I was in the braiding chair from someone who was unable to join this evening and was like, hey, I see what's happening. I just wanted to show love because I heard about it, even though I can't attend, you know, and I'm gonna have to hook you up afterwards. I was like, okay, shout out.
That's awesome. Well, we got a half hour, so I am just honored and it's a pleasure to be with one of the Black women who's on the forefront of cryptocurrency, Miss
Not the forefront.
Shanique Adams. So I'm gonna start off because I'm like a lot of people. I hear a lot about cryptocurrency, all this other stuff, and I nod my head and act like I know what's going on, but I really don't know what's going on. So if you can just share what is cryptocurrency, what it means, and what is it?
Okay. So in a nutshell, cryptocurrency is currency that is not tied by or backed rather by any government. So the US dollar is backed by the US, euros, the European Union, you know, so on and so forth. Cryptocurrency is basically it's digital currency. It can, you know, it's an umbrella term. So anything can be considered cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, all of these things. Bitcoin was the first one. But basically, the transactions are validated on a network. And the network is just literally computers that are connected together. So you don't need any outside forces in terms of a government or a central banking authority to validate the transaction. So that's what cryptocurrency is. And the transactions are validated via cryptography, hence the name cryptocurrency.
So when I've read something about like mining and all this other stuff, like where's the funds when you do cryptocurrency? Where is it?
So when you say where is it, do you mean when you, D. Monroe, goes to buy your first piece of Bitcoin or just all the Bitcoin in the world? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you, Brian Monroe, were going to go buy cryptocurrency, you have to go to what's basically called an exchange. And in the US, there are some like major ones. So Coinbase is one of the biggest ones. A lot of people now know about it through Cash App. You can also buy Bitcoin on Cash App as well as Robinhood. So basically what the companies do is they acquire massive amounts of Bitcoin through over-the-counter trading. And we were supposed to have an OTC person, but he got, you know, held up with the Corona travel.
I know. I heard he got stuck in Spain.
Yeah. So shout out to Joel at Big Kiosk. Hopefully he can join us sometime in the future. But basically, companies buy large amounts of cryptocurrency basically in bulk, and then they sell it to the everyday person. So how you can buy cryptocurrency just depends on your preference. So you can buy cryptocurrency with US dollars, or you can exchange one cryptocurrency for another. So for example, I hold several different ones. So if I have some Litecoin, I can say I want to switch my Litecoin for Bitcoin and pay for it that way. So we have a question about security. People stealing Bitcoin was a major issue. How secure is your wallet on Cash App and Robinhood? So now listen, I don't work for Cash App nor Robinhood, so I cannot speak to their security. But what I will say is cryptocurrency is one of those things where security is a major issue and it's all on you. So if your Bitcoin gets hacked and they get you, it's gone. It's not like traditional banking where, you know, your bank can just hit the transaction. You know, the scammers have gotten you, me, and pretty much everybody else in terms of our debit cards, right? But with crypto, like if you slip up and you get robbed, you're going to stay robbed, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's very much you have to live and die with your own mistakes. So there are some measures you can take. So for instance, when I buy cryptocurrency from a major exchange, I don't keep it on that exchange. So you can transfer it. You can transfer it offline. You can transfer it offline. You can transfer it to a paper wallet. They have mobile apps, so you can literally add an app on your phone to transfer it to that. So that way it's not connected to the exchange, because what happens is a lot of times the exchanges get hacked, and that's how they get people's money. So not legal advice, not speaking on behalf of my employer, but that's just what I would recommend that people do, is not keep your money on the exchange. Transfer it someplace that you have more control.
I think we talked offline a little bit about like how is crypto and Bitcoin good for Black people? Like as we move forward, I mean, I've heard some things that this is really a good option for Black people. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure, sure. So when you hear the term that it's a good option for Black people, I think it's a good option for Black people in twofold. So one is our brothers and sisters that are not in the U.S. So for my job, Africa is one of like our like those are our biggest users, because they are, those people over there, they're in governments where they cannot rely on the money, right? One thing I didn't know that I learned from work, Zimbabwe uses USD as their currency because their inflation got so out of hand that the currency was just worth nothing, right? So
Okay.
in terms of Black people in the emerging world, it's a better way for them to do exchanges. So that's one part. And then for those of us who are here in the US, I definitely think that it's a good way, one, to protect against inflation, and then
Okay.
two, I know this is a conversation that I have had. I'm just a couple years younger than you, but I was not of age when Amazon, AOL, all of these things, went public. So I didn't have a chance to get rich and, put in $100 and then it's 1,000 and all of that. I didn't get a chance to do that. So when I first started hearing about Bitcoin, I was like, this seems like that can be the opportunity to get something that's a store of value for the millennial generation.
So do you think it's like an investment value for people to get it on the ground floor now, especially in the millennials and the Generation Z, for something that can really explode?
Oh, for sure, for sure. So now, of course, it's an asset and it's going to go up and down, and the volatility is higher than the stock market in most cases. And when everything went down in March, Bitcoin went way down, but Bitcoin has also recovered. So I definitely think that's a way. And another thing is, like, we know that these banks discriminate against Black people in general, and then Black communities as a whole. Like, we know that that's already documented. That's no secret. So in terms of Bitcoin, this is an economy that no one is in control of it. If you want to give me $10,000 in Bitcoin, there's nobody in the world who can stop that. Like, if literally all you need is my phone number, you can give me X amount of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and there's no government or corporation that can get in the middle of that transaction. And that's
Okay.
one thing that I think that, especially us as Black people, with the history that we have with like banking and, criminal justice.
Yeah, a lot of discrimination in banking.
Exactly. So we definitely need all the help we can get in that arena.
So let me back up a little bit. You started off your career as a lawyer. Can you just talk a little bit about how you took this journey into becoming an aficionado in Bitcoin? Because I remember that you were a lawyer at one point in time, and now you're into Bitcoin. Can you just walk us through how you got there?
Sure. So in terms of being a lawyer, yes, that is true. I started off my career in traditional financial services in the compliance, in a regular bank, and banks that we've all heard of. And, just doing the normal things that you would do at a compliance department in a bank. And I was working at Bank of China in their legal and compliance department, and I saw a continuing legal education seminar that they were having at the City Bar Association for Bitcoin. And at that time, this was like 5 years ago, at that time, only like tech people and finance people were on the committee, and all the lawyers were in the audience. And I was like, this is going to be something. So I want to educate myself on this and see where it can go. And then the more that I started learning, the more interested I got. And then previous job of mine had a blockchain like working group that I joined to understand like how blockchain and technology, like the services that we could offer from a consulting standpoint. And then I saw the opportunity to join the company that I'm at now, which is a Bitcoin startup. And basically, the way we like to say it is it's easier to teach a compliance person Bitcoin than it is to teach a Bitcoin person compliance. So, so a lot of the rules, like all of the rules of traditional banking still apply to my company because we're in the US. So therefore we're under US jurisdictions and we are, you know, by statute, a financial services company. So all of that stuff that I was doing, you know, in those previous roles, it applies to now, but then it's just harder because it's Bitcoin.
Okay. So we have like 15 minutes left. So I just want to talk to you a little bit. What has been your experiences being like a Black woman in the crypto space, in the Bitcoin space? How has that been for you?
So I would say it's kind of like the double consciousness thing that we all probably deal with in every industry, you know, everybody deals with. So it's like sometimes you're invisible and sometimes you're hyper visible. And, you know, my company that I work at, Paxful, it's a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency platform. So when the company was originally started, it was started in Eastern Europe. And, you know, you don't have to be a history buff to know that there are not a lot of Black people in Eastern Europe. Then, you know, it came over here. So we're a very diverse company for sure. So it's not weird to not see a lot of white people, but you also don't see a ton of Black people in it. And of course, I've dealt with microaggressions just like anyone else, but I will say that I think that because some of the people in especially the crypto industry are tend to be on the younger side, and a lot of times they tend to sometimes not be from the US, you don't get the typical things that you encounter in like traditional corporate America, but it's definitely not perfect.
So one of the things I've seen on the internet is a lot of advertisement about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And how does someone find out the truth in terms of weeding through all the mess that's on the internet? How do you really, if you're really interested in looking at this as an investment opportunity, something you can get in on the ground floor, how do you really weed through all the noise that you hear on the internet and all through advertising, find out what's really true with respect to this?
Right. So I would say it definitely is harder to do that in this field than, you know, if you just wanted to read about, let's say, Tesla stock, right? Like there are people who are paid to research Tesla and all what it's doing. Whereas in this, you know, arena, it's a little bit different because, you know, it kind of came up just off the internet. So until recently, there was not a class that you could take on crypto, you know, for several years. Like now schools are getting into it, but before they weren't. So I would say the first place that they always say you should start is read what's called the white paper. And that's basically what the programmers of whatever coin you're interested in wrote. So that's step one. Then step two, you kind of have to dig around online. What they call crypto Twitter is very big. There are some personalities. There are some like crypto journalists, if you will, that tend to speak to different people. And a lot of the creators of the coins, they might go and do various podcasts, things like that. When I was educating myself, I follow like a lot of the podcasts, and they have some like crypto news sites. So it's like they have like Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, and things like that. So now, if people want to get in now, I think there's definitely a lot more information that's available out there than there was, let's say, 5 years ago when I was trying to get in. But again, you would take it with, you know, you would use your fine tooth comb to be thinking about, you know, who you're gonna follow, like who you're gonna follow. You're not obviously gonna listen to somebody with a picture of an egg and 2 followers on Twitter, but if this is the CEO of a major exchange, a lot of the CCOs are very active on Twitter. You can, you know, interact with them, people who are actually in the industry. Like they're very reachable.
So we have a question. It says that Bitcoin is difficult to spend. because it's not accepted everywhere. Once you trade cash for it, how do you get your money back? I think that's a good question because I've wondered about that myself.
How do you spend Bitcoin?
How do you get your money back? Like once you trade, like so you buy like I don't know $30,000 worth of Bitcoin, right? And it goes up, whatever. And now you want your cash back. How does that work?
Yeah, so basically, that's really simple. You get your money back the same way that you got the Bitcoin. So you would go back onto whatever platform it was. The same way you can buy, you can also sell. That's the short thing. So for instance, I get reimbursed on my expense reports at work in Bitcoin. So, I can have them send me that amount and, whatever the amount is worth of Bitcoin. If I see, okay, Bitcoin jumped 20% in a day, I can just on the same app hit trade and I can sell it. And then I will have all the value in USD. So I've always been taught to not invest in things that you don't understand. Yes.
Well, I think Matthew's right about that. I think you got to do a lot of research because I think that one of the things you really do have to educate yourself in Bitcoin because there's a lot of people out there who aren't on the up and up with respect to Bitcoin and take advantage of people. But I do think that it's an opportunity. We have a question from Jeff. I'm trying to understand it. What's the advantage
of the technology? Yeah, so I see what he's saying. So just to your point, you're talking more about blockchain versus Bitcoin. So in terms of blockchain, I would say that the technology is there. I would say that the technology is there and it will help, I would say, in things like manufacturing. When I was working in consulting before I got into my current role, that was one of the things that was very big. We've all seen like the E. coli outbreaks at Chipotle and everywhere else. So one of the things that was talked about was that through using blockchain technology, you would be able to track exactly what ingredients get where, when, how, who did it, and it's all kind of in there. So if anything went wrong, you would be able to pinpoint exactly the point of failure. So that's one thing that has definitely been talked about, and I've even seen that being discussed in the corporate, the cannabis space as well. They were using blockchain technology to track the cannabis plants out at the dispensaries.
Okay, before we get to David's, I want to ask you about fintech and traditional financial services. Like, what do you see the differences are, and you can shed some light on that.
So fintech compared to traditional financial services, I would say is completely different. When I was still in the traditional financial services world, it was kind of like known like, all right, the European banks, like you might have to dress up a little bit more. They might be a little bit more into the structure and the respect and all of that. And, if you want to play around, you go to, I won't say the name of the bank. But I think in fintech, it's different because, especially if you're working in a startup space, everybody seems to be focused on like one goal. So there's a lot more cohesion and there's a lot more collaboration. So I know when I was working in traditional finance, I didn't really ever speak to anybody from the tech department or the marketing department beyond, hey, we want to put out this promotion. Is it compliant? But now I'm involved with developers daily, like even more than, some of the other lawyers, who are on the staff. So there's definitely a lot more, there's a lot more ways for you to get involved in fintech because you have to be in on the ground level because they're tech first, whereas traditional finance is kind of finance first. So we kind of serve as the gatekeepers in that sense to let them know, hey, we can say we want to build an app that connects the whole world, but, legally every single person in the whole world, got to remind them of that.
So David put a comment in, forget about Bitcoin, it's the tokens, altcoins under Ethereum. I'm not familiar with that, so if you could shed some light on that.
So, David, what I would say, okay, so in terms of just terminology for everyone who's here, I would say Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, and what they consider everything else is considered an altcoin or an alternative coin. And Ethereum was, I believe, like the second or third cryptocurrency, and it's more for developers. So a lot of the other coins that you hear about, I can't even think of it off the top of my head, but what you will hear is that it's an ERC20 token, which just means that that token was built on the Ethereum protocol. I don't know in terms of an actual use case how much those things can survive, but in terms of making money, I think alt season is coming back. In terms of like just from a money standpoint, from a use case and a technological standpoint, I don't know how useful a lot of these coins are going to be, because Bitcoin was the first one, and now there are hundreds, probably even thousands. So it's just the market nature of it. Everything cannot succeed.
So Shanique, where do you see the overall industry going right now?
So I think that crypto is going to go mainstream, and some news came out, I believe it was like last week, that even the US government, which originally was not supportive of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in any form or fashion, and when I say the government, I mean the federal government as well as a lot of the states. I've gone to federal legal events as well as state ones, and the appetite of it just was not there a few years ago. But I definitely do see the market. I see the market maturing, and if I could guess, I would say in the next 5 years, let's say, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw one of the big boys in the banking industry, like a JP Morgan, just buy a whole crypto business like Coinbase or Cash App or one of that. I could completely see that happening, especially the way that the legal and regulatory situation has been turning out recently. I think they're trying to ease it up so one of the big boys can just acquire one of the crypto companies, and then, you know, it'll be embedded with your debit card like everything else.
Well, I think Matthew put a question in here about how can we use cryptocurrency to build something in our Black neighborhoods now. And, you know, I think when we've talked about this, and I know we've talked about offline, is that you believe, and a lot of experts believe, that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is an opportunity for African Americans to get in on the ground floor of an investment that's going to prosper, double, multiply, and triple. Oftentimes, we've been locked out of those types of things that happen like that in terms of IPOs we don't know about. We just don't have access to those types of investments that are going to create long-term exponential 10x, 20x, 30x wealth. So I see Matthew's question. I don't know if that's something Bitcoin can do right now, but I do think it's an opportunity for millennials to really get in on something that can create generational wealth.
Yes, and the thing is, what I would say is, if you have a business, no matter what it is, whether it's rental property, a store, a t-shirt line, whatever, I would say that you can accept Bitcoin. There's nothing prohibiting you from accepting it. There's a stock company that sells Bitcoin stocks, and in order for me to get the stocks, I had to pay for them in Bitcoin. They were, you know, $10 a pair or whatever. I bought 4 pairs. I spent, you know, 40 plus the shipping and handling in Bitcoin, and I got it came straight to my door the same way that anything else would. So I would say, from a business perspective, if anybody's into consulting, anything, you can tell people to pay you in Bitcoin, and that would be your way to acquire it. And then you can either sell it now and you know, make it move through the economy that way, or you can just buy and hold. Like, that's what I do. I buy and hold for the most part. And I would say that anybody who has young kids, start giving them $5-10 a week in Bitcoin, and see, you know, where they're at by the time that they're, you know, 16, 18.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes left, and I just want to ask you about students, young people, or just anybody. Like, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin right now, or if you want to get involved with Bitcoin, or if this is something that's interesting to you, where do you start?
Well, I would say for any students in school right now, I think it's a good time to be a student if you're interested in cryptocurrency or fintech, because now finally a lot of the universities are catching up with the fact that people have an interest in it. So I would say take any classes that you can, as well as, now I'm not a technical person, so I'm going to butcher this next part, but forgive me. But basically, there are, if you're interested in it and you're a data analytics person, computer science person, engineer, developer, any of those types of things, get on GitHub. You can start contributing to it. So like there are ways where literally I was going to say from their dorm, but from home, you know what I mean? They can, participate in these communities and show their talent and show the talent from that aspect. And I can tell you from my experience, the founders of these fintech companies, they do look for people with good online presences and things like that. So that's where I would be, that's where I would be focusing my, energy. And to David's question, I don't recommend any coin. I recommend you do your research. A lot of people have strong feelings about things like Ripple. I suggest you do your research. And there are groups that, the question is, do you want to be an investor or a trader? So if you want to be an investor and you just want a quick flip, I would say any of those, especially like Engine, Chainlink, those kinds of things, you can flip that quickly. But if you're wanting to be a long-term investor, I would say you would probably want to focus your attention on like the top 5, 10 in terms of market cap, according to Coin Market Cap. That's where it is. And I'll put that in the chat. It's coinmarketcap.com.
So to David's point also, where do you find information on all of these different coins and evaluating them and seeing which one is good and which one's bad or which one's better or which one's up? Where do you find the information?
So I would say Coin Market Cap is usually the first place that I go, because Coin Market Cap actually gives you the numbers behind the coin. So it gives you things like circulating value, price history, things like that. So I would say that that's definitely a good starting spot. And you can kind of sort by, price movement and things like that if you're coming at it from an, investment and I want to put in some money and take out more money. And to Ronald's point, yes, DeFi is taking over, but in the crypto community, the way we feel is like Bitcoin is already DeFi. And I do think that DeFi, which is decentralized finance, I think that there's some money to be made there right now. I don't know how far in the future that opportunity is going to last.
Okay. Well, Shanique, we want to thank you for giving us this micro education session on cryptocurrency. You're going to stay, right? So.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I
so
see there are a couple people down here waiting. Do I click on them?
No, don't. Don't do that.
Okay.
But Ronald had a good question about Cardano, and I think Shanique is going to actually stay. She'll be in the main stage, and if you hit her screen, you can find her LinkedIn or DM her about any questions that you have. But I think this will be an awesome opportunity for everyone to connect and learn a little bit more offline about cryptocurrency. Okay.
Yes. And thank you, as well as Lauren, who wasn't able to join us. Thank you all for having me. Okay,
perfect. Thank you.
Of course.
I took my L, I kept it pushing, I can't break for that. They tried to count me out, I told them it's too late for that.